It's not sitting well. The bridge, it's fighting the chorus. Just record it, we'll fix it after.
No, fix it now. If we're doing this, we're not doing after. We're doing it right the first time.
Lagos, mid-2000s. In a face me, I face you compound of a dusty side street, three brothers are about to change their lives with a keyboard they didn't even own.
Just 3 minutes. If nobody calls in, I'll leave and never come back.
3 minutes.
Tunde could not sing, he could not produce, but he could talk. And in Lagos, in that era, a brother who could talk his way into a radio station was worth more than 1,000 voice lessons. That night, the song played, and the switchboard did not stop ringing.
From today, I will handle everything. Contracts, money, you too, just make the music. Don't worry about anything else. That's my job now.
Big brother, Oga at the top.
They shook on him, not with the contract, not with the lawyer in the room. Just three brothers and a promise, the kind of promise that only works for as long as nobody asks what it actually means. Within a year, Tunde had done what he promised. He registered the company, opened the accounts, learned contract language he'd never studied, simply because his brothers needed someone who could.
Your brothers should really review these too.
They trust me. That's the whole point.
And they did trust him completely, uncritically, the way only siblings can.
Lift my voice through the stormy rain. We will find a way. We will find a way.
It was such a small moment. No one saw it. No one would remember it until years later when it stopped being small.
Tunde, you're eating well these days.
Business is business, Mama. I'm just managing well.
Managing well. That phrase would come back again and again, meaning something different each time it was said. By the time Cass turned 21, Adewusi Sound Empire was no longer a family project. It was a machine. And machines like this one do not run on trust. They run on volume. Shows, singles, tours, endorsements, moving faster than anyone could track. Dami built the sound that carried them. Cass became the voice the country sang along to. And Tunde became something else entirely, the only person who understood where all the money actually went. Which meant, eventually, he became the only person who could understand it.
Bros, one day we go check the account. Well, anytime you want, my brother. Anytime.
It is easy, looking back, to say someone should have asked harder questions sooner. But when a machine is working, no one wants to be the person who stops it to ask why. Every empire built on unspoken terms eventually meets a moment when the terms have to be spoken out loud for the Adewusi brothers. That moment arrived on a tour bus in the rain.
You cannot just ignore the risks we are taking here. I am not ignoring them. I am managing them. Managing them. You are putting everything we built at risk.
Why is his share different from mine? We split everything equal deal. That was the deal. Show me the numbers.
I'll pull the statements when we're back in Lagos.
That silenced the gap between I'll pull the statements and actually pulling them would stretch in the end into 5 years.
Is it true the Adewusi brothers are done for good? We're focusing on individual growth right now.
Be honest with us. What really caused the split within the group?
Ask my brother.
The public heard a music group break up. They did not hear a family quietly stop trusting its own foundation. It took a mother's patience to accomplish what 5 years of fame and fortune had failed to do.
Stop, all of you. Eat first.
Talk after.
Dami arrived at her table first, emotional, holding onto her for a long moment. Cass arrived last, hands in his pockets, guarded. It was stiff. At first, the small talk about nothing, the long pauses, no one quite knew how to feel, but slowly, over the course of the meal, it softened. By the end, Cass turned to Tunde directly. He wanted to try again, the music, all of it, but not through him this time. Straight 50-50 between himself and Dami. Tunde could still be part of the family, just not the middleman standing between them and their own money.
I want to try again, all of it, but not through you this time. Straight 50-50 between me and Dami. You can still be part of this family, just not the middleman.
Something flickered behind Tunde's eyes in that moment hurt, perhaps, or something colder. But when he answered, his voice was even. If that's what rebuilds trust, he said, then okay, he agreed. He said yes at that table. But an agreement spoken aloud and an agreement carried out in practice are not always the same thing. Days later, in a different lawyer's office across town, Tunde sat alone once more, signing paperwork for a brand new company. When asked for a name, he answered without hesitation, Crownwave Media. It was registered that same week, the very week of the reconciliation dinner. His brothers would not learn its name for another year. The family had just found its way back to the table. Somewhere across the city, a second table was already being set, one Cass and Dami had never been invited to. The reunited Adewusi Sound Empire came back stronger than anyone had predicted. A comeback single, brand deals, shows selling out within weeks of announcement. And then, buried inside a routine bank statement, one line that did not belong, Cass noticed it first, a payment of 9.5 million naira, routed through a company called Crownwave Media, a name he had never heard before in his life. He called Tunde immediately. Tunde's answer came fast and easy. Just for tax purposes, he said. A small structural thing, nothing to worry about. Cass asked only that he be told next time before money moved somewhere unfamiliar, and Tunde agreed readily. Of course, of course. Cass hung up, unconvinced, though not yet suspicious enough to push further. 9.5 million naira. On its own, inside an empire moving hundreds of millions a year, it looked like nothing at all. It would turn out to be everything. Later that same day, driving through Lagos traffic, Cass called his younger brother and asked the same question. Had Dami ever heard of a company called Crownwave? A long pause answered him before Dami's voice did. Cass, he said quietly, I've seen that name before. On my own statement. Two brothers, two separate statements, the exact same unfamiliar name. Neither of them yet understood how long it had already been there. What began as one uneasy phone call became, over the following weeks, something closer to an investigation the brothers had never expected to be running. Late into the night, in Dami's studio, printed bank statements spread across the table between them, dates circled in red. One payment from years earlier should have landed with Adewusi Sound Empire. It had landed with Crownwave instead, and that was only the beginning of what the dates revealed. So Cass did what anyone in his position would eventually have to do. He started calling banks quietly, one relationship manager at a time, asking the kind of questions that made people visibly uncomfortable. In one bank office, an officer leaned in and spoke low, glancing toward the door as though stepping outside protocol simply by saying it aloud. Off the record, she told him, Crownwave Media had received transfers totaling close to 900 million naira over roughly 6 years. Royalties, endorsements, show fees, steady, consistent activity, year after year. Cass didn't respond right away. He simply sat with the folder in front of him. Moments later, alone in his car, engine off, keys still in the ignition, he didn't drive anywhere for a long time. 900 million naira. Not a rumor whispered across a family dinner table. A number, sitting quietly in a bank's own records, waiting patiently for someone to finally come looking for it. The question was no longer whether something had happened. The question was how their own brother, the one who had built the machine, the one who had made that very first phone call to a radio station decades earlier, would explain it. Confrontation, when it finally arrived, was quieter than either brother had expected. In Tunde's office, with the Lagos skyline behind him, he listened as Cass laid the number bare 900 million naira, moved through a company they had never agreed to. Tunde's answer was calm, composed, almost rehearsed. Crownwave was for efficiency, he said. Tax, structuring. Everyone's shares were accounted for eventually. He had built this empire before either of his brothers could read a contract for themselves. He had never taken what wasn't his to manage. Dami answered quietly that managing something was not the same as owning it. And for just a moment, Tunde's composure cracked. Where did they think the tours had come from? He asked, sharper now. The endorsements. The very first radio play, back when neither of them had a name at all. He had built the room. He believed that entitled him to sit closest to the door. It was, in its own strange way, an honest answer. It simply wasn't the one either brother had come looking for. What followed no longer resembled a family argument. It became a formal matter, regulators, forensic accountants, sworn statements. A second, far more painful split had begun. But this time, there would be records standing behind it, not only raised voices. In a deposition room, under hard fluorescent lights, a lawyer asked Tunde directly whose signature had authorized the transfers out of Adewusi Sound Empire and into Crownwave Media. Tunde paused, a bit too long. His eyes flicked briefly toward his own lawyer before he finally answered. Mine, he said carefully, as managing director. Forensic accountants do not deal in memory or loyalty or the comfortable stories families tell themselves. They deal only in numbers. And the number they eventually produced was enough to silence an entire family. Over 6 years, the report showed an estimated 1.1 billion naira had moved through Crownwave media. The disbursements were far from even significant. Consistent sums flowing to Tunde, smaller and irregular sums to Cass and Dami, and entire stretches of time where neither brother had received anything at all. Cass found himself staring at a single line describing one particular tour, the same cities, the same nights, on the same stages where Tunde had walked away with nearly triple what either of his brothers had received. This was the chapter the country would end up talking about. Not simply because of the scale of the number, but because of what that number represented. A brother who had built the room, quietly deciding, year after year, who was allowed to sit closest to the money. Late one night, alone in his studio, Dami sat scrolling through the final pages of the transaction history. When he stopped, he leaned in. His expression changed entirely. Buried in the records was a name not connected to any of the money this time, but to something much older. Something that would turn a financial dispute into a far deeper wound. He picked up his phone immediately. "Cass," he said, his voice unsteady. "You need to see this. Now, some numbers cost a family money. This one was about to cost them something no report could ever put a value on." By the time the financial story reached its conclusion in the public eye, the Adewusi family had already paid a price no court could ever calculate. On a quiet veranda one evening, Cass sat beside his wife, Folake, and listened as she spoke for the first time openly about what those years had cost her. For years, she said, she had sat at family gatherings feeling like a stranger inside her own husband's family. Every celebration carried a weight underneath it. Money nobody would explain. Silence nobody would break. Cass would later say publicly that the hardest part of the entire ordeal was never the missing millions. It was realizing how many ordinary family moments, weddings, birthdays, a simple Sunday dinner had quietly become casualties of a dispute that, in the end, was never really about money at all. Across the city, at the same table where the reconciliation dinner had once taken place, Yabo now sat alone. She had raised 3 brothers who built something the entire country once sang along to. She never imagined that she would spend her strongest remaining years simply trying to keep them in the same room. The regulators would determine what happened to the money. Only the Adewusi family will ever fully know what happened to the brothers. They set out 3 boys and 1 borrowed keyboard to build an empire of sound. What they built instead was a family who could no longer sit at the same table. What happens when the person you trusted most with your dream becomes the person you have to investigate? Adewusi Sound Empire story is not over. Part 2 is coming